looks like we're going to be leading things off. And, lots of fatties in our hand. I am going to keep this because we have the chart, of course, to hopefully smooth this draw out. We're not going to play the Gifted Aetherborn on turn 2, however, because I think we want to just cast the chart, of course, on turn 2. So I'm just going to fetch up an island. And we're probably just going to pitch one of these Torrential Gearhulks, depending on what we draw, of course. Well, now we may, I think we actually do just play the Kitesail Freebooter. This way, next turn, we can play the chart, of course. We don't have to discard from it. And it looks like another blue-black deck that we are playing against. So we see our opponent has a Kitesail Freebooter, which is very unfortunate. Maybe we should have played the chart, of course, for that reason. I'm not sure. In any case, it looks like we're about to get punished because our opponent can now play Kitesail Freebooter and take away our chart, of course. And that's going to be a big setback. Big setback. So now we're in top deck mode. That's pretty unfortunate. We were really banking on that chart, of course. If we don't draw that freebooter, we cast the chart, of course, but we drew the freebooter, which made us not cast the chart, of course, and now that's frustrating. Alright, well, now our hand is complete garbage. And sometimes that happens. Our opponent had the right card. In Evolving Wilds, it does give away some information. It's true. It's likely to be tokens or blue-black control, most likely. Some sort of blue-black deck, I should say. Not controlled, more mid-rangey. Our opponent's playing a Champion of Wits build, which I've seen before as well. So, if we draw some lands, we can play the Scarab God, but our opponent has that Vraska's Contempt that we know about. So what we'd really like is a Fatal Push to be able to just say goodbye to that freebooter and get back our chart, of course, and then really start getting some gas going. As it is, kind of slow moving, this game so far. We did draw running lands, which was pretty fortunate, but we still don't have anything we can productive to do. We need, we need the exact right combination of spells at this point. Because even if we just draw lands, the Scarab Gods and Gearhulks aren't going to be good enough. We need other stuff. And our opponent's correctly pitching away 2 Kitesail Freebooters because they know that we don't have any spells in our hand, having already looked at it with the first Kitesail Freebooter. So, do we play this pools or do we cycle it? I think we have to play it. Frustrating spot there. I mean, it gets us to 5 and 6 lands, but this deck is full of spells and we just don't have one to. We don't even have one single target for our Torrential Gearhulks, but that should change within the next few draw steps. I feel like we'll at least have something. And there's a Walk the Plank. I wonder why our opponent didn't Walk the Plank the freebooter instead. Oh, that's why our opponent has a Trial of Ambition. That's a blowout. Trial of Ambition. So does that mean our opponent has cartouches, or is it just trial? I haven't seen that one. Interesting. Well, in any case, it's pretty good here. Maybe we should have just cycled the cycle land. Well, do we play out the Scarab God knowing that our opponent has the removal spell for it? That is the question, isn't it? I wish I had a good answer for that. I don't think we do. I think we just pass. It doesn't feel good. It does not feel good at all. Just to pass, but not sure we have a better option. Maybe our opponent doesn't have any gas either, but if they play like the Scarab God of their own, they know what 3 cards we're sitting on here. It's 2 Gearhulks and the Scarab God. That hasn't changed since the beginning of the game when we kept the hand. And these Champion Wits. Alright, so we're seeing Siren Stormtaper. We're seeing our opponent is playing a version of blue-black that's even more aggressive than ours. Okay, there's a Kitesail Freebooter. Yeah, I think we cast it. We know about the Vraska's Contempt. And then our opponent has 1 unknown card. And it's a Hostage Taker. Well, the Hostage Taker seems pretty good. So now our opponent can actually Hostage Taker the Freebooter, get their Vraska's Contempt back. Ooh, that's just dirty. And now they're just going to play the Freebooter. They know it's not going to get anything, but we're taking 5 here. That's going to put us down to 13. We still have draws that could get us out of this, but it's not looking too good at this point. Ugh, man, not the draw step we wanted. If we play the Gearhulk, it's just going to get dealt with by a removal spell. I think we have to cycle this land and hope for something. Alright, at this point, I'm just going to look for a Fatal Push with this Supreme Will. Nope, no Fatal Push. Alright, well, we got to land. So, our opponent's dealing us 8 on the attack here. Not sure there's a way out of this. We could draw a card like Essence Extraction. I mean, maybe there's a series of running cards we could draw. But there's another creature to kind of put the nail in the coffin. Glimmer of Genius. Yeah, no. Nope. Not getting out of this. Okay. So let's take a look at our sideboard for this matchup. It's kind of a blue-black creature deck. So I don't think we necessarily want negates and duresses for the matchup. I like the search. I definitely like that. Gonti seems good. And Essence Extraction maybe as well. But what do we take out? I haven't actually played this matchup before. Huh. We don't have a ton of cards we actually want to board out. Vraska's Contempt doesn't seem great, though our opponent may have the Scarab God in their deck. Actually not sure how great the freebooters are. I mean, we still want our top end stuff. We just happened to draw a lot of it in that last game. I think we can cut a Supreme Will. Alright. Yeah, I'm going to shave on some of the counter magic. I think we want to be proactive, get threats onto the board, and then we have the Scarab God to hopefully take over later in the game. We did not see that card out of our opponent. And we also have Search for Ascanta as a way to control the late game. And we see that here in our opener. This is definitely better than our last opening hand. Maybe we are supposed to mulligan that. I'm still going over it in my head, but it's kind of hard to say when the series of things that... I mean, obviously the series of plays that happened did not line up well for us, but I don't want to be results oriented. So it's easy to do that when you lose a game, kind of think, what could I have done differently? Did I make the correct decision? And there's definitely a debate there to be had, but got to live with the decision and move on. And that's what we're doing. So I'm going to go ahead and just play the Search for Ascanta. We do not want that to get hit by a Kitesail freebooter of our opponents. So get that into play, and that's going to make sure that our draw steps are going to be exactly what we want for the next couple turns, most likely. And we want to put the swamp in the graveyard. It's close. I think I am going to put it in the graveyard just to kind of fill up our graveyard a bit more. Now we have a decision in terms of what to play. We could go with, well, we're going to go with one of the two creatures. I think I like the Gifted Aetherborn first. Certainly it hits harder, but if it does eat a removal spell, then maybe it clears the way for the Kitesail freebooter to hit something really important of our opponents. But we're setting up a really nice turn here with a freebooter plus chart a course. And our opponent is pitching a Gifted Aetherborn and a negate. Okay. So our opponent brought in negates, and we did not. A little difference there. I think we want Gifted Aetherborn. It seems like a strong enough card. Well, no, I'm going to put it in the graveyard. Thought about it for a second. I was like, yeah, let's click yes to the Search for Ascanta. I think we want to get this going, get this flipped as soon as we can. And I'm going to chart a course. Plenty of gas. So we could chart a course again, but I think we want to know what's going on in our opponent's hand. So I'm going to cast this Kitesail freebooter. Alright, so we actually see our opponent does have the Scarab God. Maybe went a little bit more controlling after sideboard. Multiple Vraska's Contempts. And a Lookout Dispersal. Quite the hand there. Notably, no double black, so I'm going to take the Lookout Dispersal away from our opponent. And our opponent cannot play any of those three cards that we saw. So if our opponent casts something, it would be something that we had not seen, so it's going to be a Doomfall. So what's our opponent going to take? I think the Charter Course is the strongest card. We'll see if our opponent agrees. No, actually going to take the essence extraction away from us. Which I'm pretty happy about because we don't have an answer to the Scarab God if it comes down yet. So we kind of want to just be looking for that, although there's a Gonti. So I think we just keep the Gonti. It's pretty powerful. And we hope that our opponent does not draw a land this draw step for the Scarab God, because otherwise we're probably going to lose, unless we find a Vraska's Contempt. And we know that our opponent's sitting on 2 of them, so it's less likely that we find one. Although we found a Hostage Taker. Wow. That's actually really good here. So we can take the Hostage Taker. Then if our opponent... It's interesting, right? So we could take the Hostage Taker. But if our opponent draws a Black Source and goes Black Source Scarab God, we can go Hostage Taker. Then our opponent can go Vraska's Contempt. I think we just take the Hostage Taker. Especially our opponent could just draw an island. So I think there's a couple different scenarios here, but the Hostage Taker hedges against our opponent going land Scarab God the most, which is the play that we're the most worried about. But if we had taken one of the Doomfalls, we could see our opponent's hand with the Doomfall and then take the Scarab God away if our opponent didn't draw the land. So that was what was going through my head in that moment. So there's a Kitesail Freebooter. We actually do want that, because we can take away our opponent's Vraska's Contempt, and that's going to be a pretty big deal. So I think our opponent's... Well, we'll see if our opponent makes the double block here. If our opponent does double block, we have the option now of going for the Fatal Push, but it would require using Field of Ruin, and I don't think that's worth it. So I'm just going to let this trade happen. It's still a 2-for-1, although maybe our opponent gets to eternalize these Champion of Wits, but I doubt it. Doesn't seem like the game is going to last that long at this point. So we get 2 more cards. And I'm going to take away that Vraska's Contempt that we know about. So now if our opponent drops the Scarab God, we are then going to play the Hostage Taker, take our opponent's Scarab God, and then our opponent doesn't have the removal spell anymore to deal with the Hostage Taker. So I think we win this fight. And our search for a scan is getting to the point where it is going to flip. Yeah, I think we transform it. All right, here's the Hostage Taker. And that's a big play. I mean, that's potentially just the game deciding play. We put our opponent down to 8, play this Gifted Aetherborn, and our opponent needs to have found something off the top of their deck. Something like, well, even if they have their own Hostage Taker, we actually have Fatal Push in our hand. And yep, so it's going to be going to game 3. Seemed like that was likely. And so it looks like our opponent's going more controlling after board. So I think we do want this third Vraska's Contempt. And yeah, I'm going to cut this Essence Scatter. Hard to say exactly when we're going to have a good opportunity to use it. I still like not having the Duresses and Negates. It seems like our opponent is pretty creature heavy. Pretty creature heavy build of blue-black. I'm not even confident we want Supreme Will. But I like having some counter magic in the deck. So I'm going to stick with this. But it seems like our opponent has more counter magic than us now. So our opponent probably took out cards like that Siren Storm Tamer that we saw in game 1. Well, our opponent discarded it. We didn't really see it in play, but this hand is pretty decent. I'm going to keep it. It feels good when you have the option to cast the Gifted Aetherborn on turn 2, which we are going to have that option. And it looks like we're going to once again be faced with the decision of whether or not to play Gifted Aetherborn or Kitesail Freebooter. And now I'm kind of thinking the safest play is just the Freebooter because our opponent might just have one spell in hand and we want to just get it out of our opponent's hand. If it's something like a Fatal Push, we just want to trade it away with the Freebooter. Although it turns out our opponent does have 3 spells, but now we get to see them, which is pretty valuable. So we see that our opponent has this Bantu's Last Reckoning in hand. I'm just going to take the Trial Ambition because it trades away 1-for-1 with the Freebooter. But we have to be worried and we have to tread carefully, knowing what our opponent has. I think I like going for the Charter Course here. It might bait out that Lookout Dispersal. But it looks like it's going to resolve. Perfectly fine by me. Feel pretty good about having the advantage on board, but we want to try to maintain it. So this Kitesail Freebooter may get met with a counterspell. I think we're just trying to set up the Scarab God on our next turn. So I'm just going to play out the Freebooter. I'm kind of expecting our opponent to play the Lookout Dispersal. Yep. But we can play the Scarab God next turn and Bantu's Last Reckoning is not at all an answer to the Scarab God, so as far as we know, our opponent doesn't have an answer to the Scarab God, but that may have changed within the past couple draw steps. Okay, so there's a Hostage Taker, but we can actually just Fatal Push that. So I'm going to do that. And now we get to see exactly what our opponent's got. So it's a Gifted Aetherborn, along with that Trial and Bantu's Last Reckoning. So the Trial could trade with the Freebooter. Do we care more about Bantu's Last Reckoning or Trial? Is what this comes down to. Now I think we care more about the Bantu's Last Reckoning, so I'm just going to grab that. So I think that exchange worked out well for us. And now we get to land the Scarab God, which has a way of just taking over the game. It's the most important card in the deck. It's the card that wins you the most games. Our opponent has a Hostage Taker in the graveyard, and we have a Kitesail Freebooter. So we have some fodder we can get back. Although our opponent has Scavenger Grounds. So our opponent could pop the Scavenger Grounds to make it so that we can't get things back with the Scarab God, but that just seems like a losing battle on the other side of the table if our opponent's trying to do that. But it looks like our opponent is in fact trying to do that. So there goes the graveyards, but you know what? I would have if I was the opponent, I would have cast this Trial first. Our opponent should have probably cast the Trial first, but instead they're casting Gifted Aetherborn. So we can now deal with the Gifted Aetherborn. I think we want to use the Fatal Push on it because we want to keep the Essence Extraction in case our opponent draws Hostage Taker. And we also now can activate the Scarab God. So I'm just going to keep 4 mana up for the Scarab God rather than playing anything. And here's Vraska's Contempt, so our opponent actually found an answer off the top. But I'm not actually too concerned because we get this Gifted Aetherborn back. And that's a 4/4. That's a 4/4 Death Touch Lifelink now. And that Bantu's Last Reckoning is pretty safe away from our opponent's opponent right now. So let's get in there. And now we just kind of have to think about how to best close the game out. We could dump both the Gifted Aetherborns into play. The risk is that if our opponent drew something to get rid of the Freebooter, then the Bantu's Last Reckoning could then get cast. I think I'd rather just take a little bit of a safer line. Just play one Gifted Aetherborn. And then also get this Search into play. And I don't see how we're losing this game. Alright, well our opponent drew, looks like they have multiple Bantu's Last Reckoning. So that's how we could potentially lose the game. Never say something like that because it will come back to bite you. However, I still like our spot. That's the good news. But It is a much closer board. It's a much closer game state than it was before. Glad I did not play the second Gifted Aetherborn, I'll tell you that. And I won't be playing 2. Although, yeah, I'm not going to be playing the second one. I mean, our opponent's lands don't untap, but our opponent could just draw an untapped land, and we know that our opponent has another Bantu's Last Reckoning. So our opponent can just go land Bantu's Last Reckoning. That is one thing that could happen. I think I'm just going to get rid of that now. And so we're now in a situation where the search can flip, although we want the Gonti, so we're not gonna flip it yet. And I think now we just play the Gonti, and we're okay if our opponent uses Bantu's Last Reckoning on Gifted Aetherborn and Gonti. Plus, we might find a counterspell or a Kitesail Freebooter off the Gonti trigger, so we don't know what we're going to find. And we did find a Freebooter. So now we can freeboot away the Bantu's Last Reckoning that we know about. So we know that our opponent has Trial Bantu's Last Reckoning. We know about that much. So we're going to take the Bantu's Last Reckoning. The Trial can eat Gonti, sure. We'll let that happen. And notably, our opponent just keeps drawing, feels like the perfect card, but there's a cycle land, so our opponent's starting to brick off a little bit. And because we have Search, even if our opponent draws gas spell after gas spell, it feels like we're just always gonna as long as we don't overcommit, we're gonna be in a good spot. And I would like to flip Search for Escanta. Thank you very much. So I think we may want to go for a main phase activation of the Search, just to see what we find. So it's going to be a Fatal Push. Well, I think I like... Do we play one more creature here? It's close, but I think we do. I think we overextend a tiny bit. If our opponent draws specifically... Yeah, I think this is right. Pretty confident about it, actually. And it looks like our opponent's going to pack it in here. Oh, here's a Liliana's Death Majesty. Wow. That was not something I was expecting. But yeah, our opponent can make a zombie. We can just Fatal Push it, though. And even if we didn't Fatal Push it, we just have lethal. So our opponent's deck was pretty interesting. It looks like they definitely changed it around after board. Not sure if that was helpful or not, but in any case, it worked out in our favor.